Welcome to Real Chat,
the podcast where we, Annie and Chad, discuss real shit
loosely related to the real estate industry.
Hi, Annie. Welcome to Real Chat, you ragged muffin.
Ragamuffin, not ragged.
I was going to say ragged bitch, but I thought that would be a little bit too much for the opening today.
Clearly,
this episode.
Everybody needed to see what happened before we started.
What episode are we on? 25, right?
Yes.
Episode 25.
Yes.
I'm super excited about the episode today. Her face right now on the screen is like, what the literal fuck is going on?
You need to like switch to
hot in here.
Way sooner in the morning. Good Lord.
We have a guest today.
I'm aware.
Who is our
and
guest?
You're acting a fool.
We have a guest today. I'm very excited about our guest today.
It's a surprise guest for me to know we were having a guest.
I know. Hence the pre-argument and the start of the podcast. Anyways, it's Mandy Holt. Hi, Mandy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Sorry, Mandy, that it was so crazy.
I love it.
For Chad.
The chaos with Chad and Annie is my favorite part of this podcast. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
The chaos with Chad that Annie manages is what you meant.
Correct. Okay, correct.
Good.
Mandy works for Essential Marketing Group, which I know you guys have all heard us talk about before. Mandy's actually the one that edits the podcast for us, makes us look pretty, and cuts out all the crap that we actually say that shouldn't be public, and then puts it together. So.
Yeah, and if you think that I'm not saving the footage for bloopers reels or to use against you, you are underestimating me.
I would so be doing that if I was you too.
It's all right. I'm good with it because I live by that motto. You taught me this motto a long time ago. I don't ever say anything publicly or anywhere out loud that's being recorded that I wouldn't stand up in front of a judge and say. So
I did teach him that.
That is very smart. That is very smart. We'll see how you feel about it when you start blushing on your next episode.
Oh, girl, you got no idea. Ain't gonna happen. Anyways, beyond being one of the marketing masterminds behind Annie and Chad, because we don't do none of this shit ourselves.
Nope, they make us look good.
They do. You guys also, you and not your sister Mandy.
Did you remember that one when Chad?
I do.
This is with the same name. Oh,
yeah. Our mom is brilliant.
Just started your own podcast.
Yeah,
we did.
Right?
I'm
super exciting.
Excited. It is called the Corporate Burnouts, and we are 8 episodes in to this fun journey of reliving some of the past and looking back at what we maybe coulda, woulda, shoulda done differently and lessons that we learned along the way. We've had some really cool guests that have come on and shared a different perspective from different time periods, different industries, and just, everybody has their own journey through, work in general, but through corporate. And it's been really enlightening to see that some of our experiences are very, just corporate. And some of them are like, wow, we didn't have it that bad, And the reality is we both came from Texas Roadhouse and love the company, both left for reasons that had nothing to do with it being corporate. But once we stepped outside of being in the daily grind of corporate to that entrepreneurship of running our own thing, it's like, holy cow, you recognize a lot of things that you were dealing with that you didn't realize weren't just a normal part of work. It's only normal because it's corporate.
Right. So what is the name of that podcast?
It's called the Corporate Burnouts.
I love that. It is interesting. And I was excited to have you on, and we can go whichever way you want to with this podcast. That we just talk about whatever the hell we feel like talking about at the moment. But I'm excited to have you on because number one, there are a ton of corporate burnouts in real estate. It's a very common thing with real estate agents, right? Not only are there a ton of corporate burnouts in real estate, but the lady sitting next to me happens to be
done that.
a corporate burnout. So 25 years?
Plus.
at McDonald's, right?
Right.
So it is an interesting conversation and topic why that happens or whatever.
It really is interesting, and Annie, I'm really excited to hear kind of what your journey was like through that. Being McDonald's, like I said, we came from Texas Roadhouse, so it's all food service, different but the same. So I'm excited to see some of those similarities.
Yeah, no, and I love that, your podcast is called Corporate Burnout, but I love that you already nodded to so many great things that you learn in that environment that allow you to go on and become an entrepreneur that is successful because you need those things.
Absolutely. And I will tell you that if it wasn't for the 20 years that I spent at Texas Roadhouse, I would really be out of control right now. So many of the
100%
things,
agree.
I mean, all of the skills came out of, I didn't go to college for marketing. That is not my expertise from an education. I learned through experience, and they taught me everything that I know, the do's and the don'ts, and a lot of those best practices. And it really set us up to be able to create the corporate environment, if you will, that we really wanted to live with, instead of having to deal with all the red tape and this particular set of brand guidelines. I mean, what we're doing now, we're working with a ton of different businesses. So it completely opens up that creativity and open the door to opportunities for us to explore in ways that we weren't going to be able to do boxed in at one brand within Texas Roadhouse.
Right.
Yeah, it is crazy. And it is true to the testament to that, that corporations or the corporate lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, does play a purpose, because that is where I never worked in a corporation at all, ever. I mean, I did as an hourly employee, but I don't know whether you can tell, I don't really drive in that environment very well.
Yeah, it shows.
It doesn't
Chad.
play well with others.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the
It
sentence
shows
we're looking for.
You didn't
Right.
learn to play nice in the sandbox.
No,
But I will tell
did
you,
not.
it can also be a superpower, right? Because you don't have those predetermined mindsets that kind of gatekeep you from doing things the way that you want to do them, right? It doesn't hold you back.
It makes me wonder, because people have said that before, that I have the ability to get up above the fray a lot easier than a lot of people do, and see the big picture and the overall goal and the route and stuff like that. And I always wonder, the opposite of that is put your head down and stay in the weeds, as you have said before, right? And I always wonder if that's the corporate conditioning in people, that when you're in corporate, you have a job and you stay within the confines of those jobs, and you don't, I would say old corporate, older corporate structure and management style, from what I've been told. I've never been there. You guys both have lived there, but you're given a job description, you're given a job title, and you're to do that job within that job description, within this set of rules. And so it's not necessary to know what's going on at a larger scale, how is the company making money, and what is the vision, and what are all of those things. It doesn't matter, because you just put your head down and stay within your little sandbox there, right? Which is funny, because you and I argue all the time about playing in each other's sandboxes, and I don't like it when people play in my sandbox either. But on the other hand, I also want people to come into the sandbox, because that's where new ideas come from, and it also checks yourself for am I seeing the right thing, right? Are they going to behave in my sandbox the same way I am? Are we all on the same page and going the same way?
Yeah,
So.
bring in a fresh voice to your ideas will sometimes make a huge difference.
Another thing that comes from you working in corporate a lot is I know the difference between using the yellow spatula and the white spatula at McDonald's, and why you use the yellow one for certain eggs and the white ones for different eggs. And I'm saying that as a joke, because it's an inside joke for us. It's are you using the yellow or the white spatula? It means, are you following the system just because you were told to, or because you understand why you use the difference? But that whole train of thought, systemizing and training on systems and stuff like that, comes out of that one silly story.
Maybe I'll expand on that now to make it not be
story.
too confusing. But
Yeah.
and maybe it's a corporate thing, maybe it's not. But at McDonald's, you by the time you get down so many levels, they have a yellow spatula, and that yellow spatula back in the day was used to touch the raw eggs. You would use that to break the yolk on the Egg McMuffin egg, but you would never touch the cooked egg after it was cooked and you were taking it off the grill. You touch that with the white spatula. Well, sometimes things in corporate America get so watered down. By the time they get to the crew person doing it, nobody explained to them why we're using the yellow spatula. And so I say that to Chad all the time. Like, you have to understand why. If you want someone to do it on a regular basis, they need to know why they're doing it, not just because they were told.
Because
But
it sounds silly. It sounds
Yes.
super silly that you are the only one that's allowed to use the yellow spatula and I get to use the white one.
Right.
When there's cross-contamination is a real thing.
Salmonella
it's
is
very
real.
important.
Right.
Absolutely. In my world, I don't believe we had different colored spatulas. We didn't serve eggs, but cutting boards were huge.
Yes.
You
Same.
had, whether you were cutting chicken or, some other kind of proteins or vegetables, like they were color coded for that reason, so that they never, ever, ever came in contact with the wrong source of food.
Right.
But I think it goes to that whole mantra of in corporate, like to your point, it gets watered down so much that the person standing there breaking the eggs, they don't care why. Like they're
But
not,
like you're saying,
you're just using the
the-
yellow spatula because you're being told to use the yellow spatula. You
those
got your
sandboxes,
head
right.
down in your sandbox, and in your sandbox, you use the yellow spatula.
but a good manager teaches you why, because if you understand why, you're more likely to do it.
Yeah.
Than just because my boss told me to do it. And that
Right,
can be a bad thing in corporations, is you just do it because you were told to do it.
I think
Absolutely.
that's how the majority of corporations work, though, too, right?
To be honest with you, like 100% of my corporate journey was at Texas Roadhouse, and I can't speak to the way other people do it, but they have a really badass training program. So
Really?
yeah, so the reasons of why we actually called them Bubble Whys, like they really go into depth as to why we do what we do. Because, to your point, Annie, if you don't tell me why I have to use the yellow spatula and I'm sort of a rebel, I might use the white one just to piss you off,
Right.
because I
Or
can't,
only
having
when-
no idea that it's actually a health problem.
We're talking about me
Yeah,
right now.
Chad's going to be the one
That's why I
that's
got
going to
fired
give everyone
numerous times.
salmonella.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, I think that the why is really, really important. And it's funny that you bring up those systems, because that's one of the things that I think Mandy and I have been able to take from our previous life and put in place in our own business, and come up with systems and routines that keep us on track. Because otherwise, when you're dealing with a ton of different clients that are going a different direction and the projects don't look anything the same, it'd be really hard to be organized if you didn't have a flow through of systems that would keep you on track. So that is a big piece of it. But
you wouldn't have learned that had you not had that journey.
yeah, it's so funny, because I think about all the people who must be listening to our podcast, right? Like the people that we worked with for 20 years going, oh yeah, so you guys started a podcast to go talk crap about us. Like, that is not it at all. It is not about bashing corporate. If you look at our memes, it kind of feels that way, but that's really just being, relatable with how it feels sometimes to be inside of it when you're either not getting it right, or you're working for a toxic boss, or whatever. There's so many things that really apply to any industry. It might feel that way, but really we just learned a lot through it, and we have been able to apply some of those things in our lives now and restructure our lives to where we're a lot happier, but took from that, instead of, burning it down and, trashing them, we really want to learn from it. And if you are somebody who is in corporate and wants to stay there, I'd love to be able to let you learn from my mistakes and, make it better for you staying there. But if you're one of those people that you're realizing that the issues that you have aren't fixable, then we also want to help you find a way out, because there's a path for everyone, right? And sometimes you don't need to find a new seat on the bus. You need to find a whole new bus.
That's the truth.
True.
No, and that is, and that's where real estate comes into it, because real estate is it really is an industry that requires corporate training. Like, it really is. I couldn't have done real estate to the level of success without having worked with Annie, who had that training outside of that. Like, we talk all the time about business planning. business planning is not something that you do outside of in a corporate
You
setting.
did not learn that in high school.
Naturally, they don't teach it in high school.
Yeah.
So unless you went to school and got a business management degree or something like that. But if you're just going into real estate off the street, you don't have to call it, a business degree, or you've got a degree in something else that's not related to business, and you're starting a real estate business, that is such a foreign concept to most new realtors.
Yeah, I
you
would
say-
imagine they probably it doesn't even occur to them that they need
Right.
that. And it's a
Right.
foundational element.
element to running your own business. And but that training came through how to make a business plan, and what's included in a business plan all came from her experience at McDonald's, right? And so it is very valuable information to have and a great place to start. I wonder how many successful entrepreneurs were corporate burnouts versus the successful entrepreneurs that were not.
That would be a very interesting statistic to try to obtain because, most people don't graduate high school or graduate college and then say, oh, I'm going to go open my own business, right? Whether you're a hairstylist or a realtor or in market, it doesn't matter what it is. Your normal inclination would be to go get your feet wet, go do the job before you try to run the business also. So, whether they are corporate burnouts, like they actually got burned out and had to find their way out, or they just used it as, a step on the ladder. I would imagine that a whole lot of the entrepreneurs out there did start in corporate.
Talking about realtors, it would be very interesting to know how many realtors are independently successful who were not in corporate America, or how many of those new realtors find themselves at one of the big companies
that are
on a
corporately
team.
structured. Right.
Because if you didn't have that background, this industry is very hard to break into. If you don't have that, you're running it like a business. You need a business plan. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to become a broker, was to be able to help other entrepreneurs be able to start their business. And, one of the things I use to explain it all the time is you need to picture your real estate business like you owned a food truck and it's parked in your driveway. Like it's a real business, even though you may not have a brick and mortar building, but your business, you got to have hours that you operate. You've got to have a business plan. You have to have a budget. You have to advertise. But I learned all of that in corporate America.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting about that is that people generally will not show up for themselves. I think somebody said this on one of our episodes, actually, or you're less likely to show up for yourself in the way that you would show up for a manager at work because of that accountability. So to your point, if you're not running, your business as its own business, and you're not holding yourself accountable and having discipline with your hours, having discipline with, the daily task list or whatever that looks like, then really you got to check yourself. Would I be getting fired right now if I work for someone else? That's
exactly. We say that all the time. Would you hire you?
Right.
Yeah.
Would you hire you to run your business?
It is crazy.
Because you did.
Think about.
It's a big gut check moment. And it's funny because I will tell you, I operate so much better under accountability. And that's why Mandy and I get along great. She owns the business and she's doing her thing. I don't want anything to do with that. All this, I want to do the work. I am excited about building websites, and I am excited about branding and all of those things. And I'm like, can you just do that part? I don't want to do that part. She's like, great, work for me then. I'm like, okay, great. Let's do this. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then the burnout piece too. I think that it's so funny to me. There has to be a personality trait almost. And I don't know, maybe I'm not using the right descriptor, but in my head, right, there are people that work for corporate America for 20 years and then they are burnt out. But I know people, married to one of them, that has worked in corporate America for the same company for, he's 19 years next year, I believe. And he's not burnt out at all. Doesn't. So what is it? Is it the environment? Is it a specific boss? Is it something inside the person that causes that burnout? What is that?
Honestly, I think it can be a combination or independently, any of the things you just mentioned, because I'll tell you, I drank the Kool-Aid with Texas Roadhouse. I still
No,
believe
same.
I
You
believe
Absolutely.
in exactly what it is that they're doing. You know, they are practicing what they preach. It is a
Mm.
people company that just happens to serve steaks. Like, I 100% believe in what they're doing. But I will tell you where the burnout came from me was when I started dropping my boundaries and letting go of pieces of myself to give more. And I started like becoming, my life was more Texas Roadhouse than it was Mandy Holt. It was more Texas Roadhouse than it was the Holt family. It started to kind of bleed over, and they didn't do that to me. I let that happen. So when it comes to that, it's like when you talk about personality traits, yeah, my desire, my need to be needed, you know, if somebody picked up the phone, it didn't matter if it was on a Sunday morning at brunch or if it was,
Mhm.
you know, Friday night dinner, I'm answering the phone, because if I don't answer the phone, then you're going to turn around and call somebody else. And when it comes time to rewards and recognition and all the things, you're going to remember when I didn't answer the phone for you and I wasn't available. Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, but that's what was playing in my head. So I dropped all the boundaries and I did whatever I had to do. I missed, you know, kindergarten recitals to be at some stupid planning meeting that could have been an email. You know, there was a ton of
Mm.
those things that were decisions that I made because I wanted to give more. I wanted to move up. I wanted to be needed. And that's where I was finding the most of my self-worth. And when you put the majority of your self-worth into a company that you don't own, by the way, you're building with and for
Right.
someone else, it's like you're losing so much of your identity. After a while, that's not sustainable. So when I say that I'm burnout, I was burnout. There was a little bit of an expectation of that. Like at Roadhouse, it's like the reality is if you're not all in, you're kind of not going to make it, right? If you don't drop those
Mhm.
boundaries, you're not going to make it. But I don't know that that's a Roadhouse thing. That's like a,
That's
I was gonna say,
interesting
what is
though.
your
Yeah.
what's
Well,
your side of that
I'm
story?
feeling tied to you right now with this. How old were you when you
I
left?
started working there when I was almost 20, and it was just after 40 when I left.
Okay,
So,
so interesting. I started working at McDonald's as a teenager and did it through college and then went into management, but I left McDonald's at 40
mhm.
and where the boundaries and I too drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, absolutely
Still does to
loved
this day.
absolutely. I have nothing bad to say about my corporate experience at all, but I left because of the boundaries when I had my kids.
Mhm.
I was a business consultant and I was traveling. My job was to travel. My territory was Arkansas, Branson. And so as I was sitting in hotel rooms at night and babysitters were with my babies, that was when it got to be too much for me. And I wonder how many people do reach it at that same point, because it sounds like yours was at the same time frame.
Annie, it was the exact same. I have chills right now because that was my life. I traveled. I did regional marketing for Texas Roadhouse, and I had anywhere at any given point between 20 and 40 locations that I was supporting. So I was somewhere different every day
Same.
across the state of Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, all over the place. And I mean, it's Texas, okay? Like it's freaking huge.
Mhm.
So I'm 3 hours away from my closest store. I'm gone for at least 4 days a week. My kids were 1 and 2 when I started that job. Well, not when I started the job, but when I started traveling for work, when I started the regional support part of things. Um, and then when I left, I mean, they were teenagers. So it was like looking back, I was like,
Wow.
I've literally given away my kids' childhood. And one of the biggest catalysts to make me realize what I had done was when I got a divorce. And that divorce was like, well, no wonder this thing fell apart. You weren't home. Like we were high-fiving, taking responsibilities. He had them 3.5 days. I had him 3.5 days. He worked on the weekends predominantly, and I worked during the week. So we were just passing ships in the night. No wonder. And then it was like, this is not like there's got to be more.
There's got to be
There's got to be
more.
more to life than
That's
this. Like,
right.
I feel guilty if I'm at work and not home with my kids. I feel guilty if I'm home with the kids and not answering the phone or not showing up to that meeting. There's no part of my life that isn't riddled with guilt. This isn't happy. There's nothing about this that's happy, even though I deeply love the company and actually really enjoyed the job. I wasn't
Same.
really upset about that. There were corporate things that really bugged the crap out of me, like everyone else, I'm sure. the red tape of things, the politics of all that stuff is
Right.
everywhere. But for me, it was about I had to find some balance in my personal life. And starting this podcast has been really cathartic. Mandy and I, we therapize each other all the time. So to be able to get to the root of why I do what I do, or, just sorting through that kind of thing, it's been something that is really natural for us to talk about those things and work through. But what I'm hoping comes out of this, like our overall goal, is to create a community of people that can be there for each other. The ones that need to find a way out, we don't have all the answers, right? But hopefully we can build a community of people who can wrap their arms around each other and give that solid advice, or the people that just have an issue that they're trying to get over, or they need to know how to handle a certain situation to be able to stay where they're at and be happy staying, then, being able to give them that advice, because it's all about finding that balance in your own life and being happy where you're at.
I
And
love that
for sure.
too, because well, in the best way to make it through transition, which is what that is, right? So many people, changes happen, and change is a scary thing. And so many times I see like they're scared of change, so they won't do change, but then they'll change something else really fast in their lives. And I'm like, why are you scared to change this, but you're okay changing that? And it can be as simple as like, I can't make a career move, but I can go chop my hair completely off and whatever. And the reason for that is because if they chop their hair off, they have a circle of people around them that they know for sure are still going to be there after they chop their hair off. Making the other transition is scary because there's no group of people around you anymore that will be there and still make you, because at the end of the day, we all want to just feel like we're successful and feel pumped up and feel safe, like we can share what we want to share and not be judged for wanting to leave or like anything or making the change or whatever. And so like I love that you're giving that, like that mindset of, if you're struggling in that corporate world. I feel like we have the same mindset here in the office. Like, you're open to try to be yourself, try new things. Nobody's going to judge you. Make the change. You want to try something crazy in real estate? Annie and I are here for it. Like, there's no doubt about that. And I feel like it's the same. Like, that's so important. And a lot of people miss that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure, Mandy, you agree that leaving corporate America doesn't fix all the things that you didn't like about
I
corporate
traded
America.
problems.
Guess what? I still get burnout. I still work 24 hours I still don't have enough boundaries. So it is nice to have a group of people who can support you and say you can do it if it's what you want to do, but it doesn't fix everything either.
Right. And, I think what fixed that for me is that because Mandy and I kind of went through the same thing. When I came on, she started Essential Marketing Group well before I came on. And when I came on, she knew why I was leaving and exactly what I was looking for. So we have maintained systems and practices that, I can't say I never work on the weekends or work in the evenings. It does happen, but for the most part,
He's chasing us down half the time.
You're welcome.
That's not me. I'm not chasing
Thank you, Annie and Chad.
But like, I get to pick my kids up from school every single day. We have dinner together every night. I'm home on the weekends. It doesn't take me 3 hours to go to work, right? Like, I am right here, very present in my life in ways that I, quite honestly, never have been in my adult life. And so it's all kind of new. I say new, it's a couple of years old now, but it's still very fresh, and it feels good. It feels good to be able to look back and appreciate what I got from the experience and apply the things that were wonderful to the world that I'm in now. And, Chad, to your point, the hardest part of leaving was leaving behind a family. Like, for 20 years, I knew these people, and they were a part of my everyday life. And those people that mean the most to me, or that came out of Texas Roadhouse that mean the most to me, I still have a relationship with. But there's a lot of people that meant a lot to me. I say meant, I don't mean like they don't anymore, that I don't talk to on the regular because we don't have, or when I don't work for you anymore, right? Like we don't
Right.
have the common
I just
ground.
went to lunch though with my people I haven't seen some of them for 20 years.
Yeah.
And
I
it
think
was
that's
just like,
incredible.
and it was just like we never missed a beat. But to your point, I hadn't talked to him for 20 years.
Right. Because you
Well,
don't
I
have the
think
common
that-
ground
But
anymore.
you still have that connection that you had all those
Yes.
years.
I think that can be prevalent anywhere because like what you're explaining there, I hear a lot of times, like when I'm listening to people coach and listening to other real estate, like brokers coach their agents and stuff, identity, right? I think identity is something that we don't talk about enough with people in general in all sorts of different spheres. And I don't know that I'm an expert on identity. What I do know is that I went through an identity crisis at a very young age. And so I worked through that without the world or societal conditioning upon me, right? Like those corporate structure and the red tape and everything like that. I think that a lot of people allow their job to become their identity. And so
Yes.
and it's interesting to me because I hear brokers sometimes coaching the agent to make the business your identity, and that's how you attain success in the business.
It is,
And
but it's also how
like,
you lose yourself, and then life sucks.
that's what I'm saying. Like you might have success for 3 or 4 years that way, but that is not sustainable.
Not
You
at all.
have to maintain your personal identity. You cannot be Annie the realtor forever, right? Yeah, it might kickstart your business, but you need to, if you're going to do that, you need to put into place an exit plan in the back end of that to be able to transition out of that identity into I am Annie, or Annie is my identity, and it doesn't have anything to do with my job or title as a realtor, right? And I feel like the relationships that lasted because your relationship was not built on what position you were in within the company or what title you held within the company. It was built or positioned on some characteristic of who you were as a person, some core value characteristic. And I think that's really obvious in your point, because you just said you went to McDonald's lunch the other day with friends that you hadn't talked to for 20 years, right? Those people knew you and you knew them and you build a relationship because of the identity of your title within the corporation. You have best friends that you met at McDonald's that you built a relationship with on a core value and not on the title or position that you both held. And you talk to those people every single day still.
Yeah.
And that's
Some.
yeah, some of them. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I think that's so important to like avoid the burnout almost. Like, I wonder if that's what causes some of the burnout. My husband is one of those, like I said, he's worked for the same corporation for 19 years. But when you ask him who he is, and him and I have had a lot of conversations around identity, his job is never in the list. That's not who he is.
And he has fantastic boundaries. That's great.
Right. And it goes to that boundary of not allowing your job to become, I don't think people realize they have control over that.
Well,
yeah, I don't even think that it happens consciously. It's something that you do to, like I said, when you tie your self-worth into your work, you give that up like unconsciously, but very willingly.
Yes. But Mandy, both you and I were in the restaurant industry, and I think there's a distinction because Chad's husband is
not in the restaurant industry.
It's the water company. Could I say that?
Yeah, he works for Missouri American Water.
They're closed. They have hours. We
didn't.
We had no boundaries.
It was 24/7.
Christmas Eve, New Year's Day. I mean, they needed you.
Yeah.
You say
and
that,
if you're not there, it's like,
and the company has 24-hour operations.
Right,
I mean,
but that's not his job. No one's calling him because the water main broke at 3 a.m.
at the call center. I mean,
But
like that's where he
different.
started. Yeah, so it's there, but yeah,
it is
I think interesting.
And that is part of our podcast that I love having guests for, because to your point, Annie, we didn't have working hours. Like there were days where I was working 16, 17 hours because if you don't answer the phone at 8 a.m. to some of the people at Texas Roadhouse, those are business hours. Why would you not be available? And then of course, all day long, you're going to be working. But then if you don't answer the phone at 9, 10 o'clock at night, well, the restaurant's still open. These are business hours. Why are you not available? And you're like, good, like what? I can't do it at all. I can't be
crazy.
everywhere.
But that brings us back to real estate.
No,
Because
McDonald's
real
was 24
estate,
hours a day. Like at least Texas
I'm sure that
Roadhouse was
even worse.
closed
Yeah.
between midnight and 8 a.m.
not during most of my career. That kind of happened at the tail end. I did not live the 24-hour life, but real estate is.
It is
real estate is. If a client wants to talk to you at 9 o'clock at night, or a house is taking offers and on Sunday till 5, and it doesn't matter what you're doing on Sunday. If you want your client to get, that house, you've got to write the offer and send it in by that deadline. So it is a lot, it's a lot harder for me probably to let go of some of those boundaries than it is like you said, like you set your own hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's calling. Chad and Annie might be texting you memes at 2 in the morning, but you can ignore them.
I won't say that we don't get calls. We
do
get calls in the evenings, and we do work on weekends when those things are needed, but I'm in control of that. And if I'm not able to help you at that time, I can tell you when I can get back to you. I'm not sitting at my daughter's tennis match or at a, theater musical going over here on the text message, not paying attention in the way that I used to, because I don't know why. It's like, if the building's on fire, you're not calling me. I do marketing, man. This is not an emergency. But I treated it like it was.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, real estate is the same thing, though. And that is, and I always challenge you with this boundary whenever you say that, because you don't have to answer the phone at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. Your clients, as a real estate agent, pick you and choose you because they believe you have their best interest at heart. And that's true any time of the day. If you are something and you can't answer the phone on Sunday night at midnight, that client is not going to care.
It's the same as the corporate stuff. It's
a boundary.
It's self-imposed. That's all
very self-imposed.
You didn't have to answer that text message during the tennis match. You just felt an obligation. For sure, it's self-imposed.
Yeah.
And every single person that was, in a leadership position over me, that I would, discuss that like frustration or, the burnout coming on of like, man, I can't be ever. And they're like, why are you trying to? Like, that's not what your job is. And I'm like, well, if I didn't, you would be mad. Like if it was you that I missed the call, you'd be, no, I wouldn't. I don't answer the phone every time you call. And I'm like, it really is self-imposed, even though you know that.
And you're like, yeah, and it pisses me off that you don't answer the phone.
Yeah. And I'm like, right, because I needed you. But at the same time, like, good on you that you have boundaries and I don't.
Right. Exactly.
And I had to really face that.
Boundaries are hard.
Yeah. I had to really face that upon leaving, that this really wasn't like, Roadhouse didn't do this to me. They are a fantastic company, and they give you, especially like in the support role that I was in, there's so much autonomy to your schedule, to like where you go and when and how you get it done. Like for a long time, I thought, well, I'm never going to find anything better. This is the most flexible thing I've ever done, but there's so much, and you have to fit it all in. Like it might be flexible of how you do it, but you still got to do it. And that means being gone. But in taking control of what I wanted my life to look like, and then work around that instead of trying to schedule my life around what work required, was a huge game changer for me.
That's
huge.
Yeah.
And some people can do it. Some industries will allow for it and some won't. And maybe, in a few years when my girls graduate high school and are off doing their own thing, it won't be so important to me. Maybe I'll be back in, I don't necessarily think I'll go back to corporate, but I may be back in the grind a little bit more, because those important things in my world right now have passed. Yeah.
It's true. I'm on the other side of that. It is a lot easier now for me, because I don't have small, but now I'm getting back. Now I have grandkids. So now I'm starting to shift back into
making time for those sort of things. Like getting to go to the baseball games.
And I know a lot of people moan and complain when you talk about a lot of that, that touchy-feely stuff. It's so funny. It's been coming up all over the place for me, like leading with empathy and like, those are not in a traditionally.
It's because you're not touchy-feely. You don't
I know.
like it.
In a traditionally male-dominated society for the past, like those are typically feminine thought processes, right? Empathy, work-life balance, those types of things. Like they're hard to talk about because we're still in that transition. But they are so important to success.
They are, but I want you to think about really fast why work-life balance doesn't occur to a man. Let's think about this. Because historically speaking, the woman was the homemaker, right? And then over time, the woman decided she wanted to work, but continued to be the homemaker.
Right.
Yep,
right. Like most men in corporate America aren't the ones doing their laundry or cleaning house or picking up the kids or making breakfast or making dinner. Like most of them, I say that like with no statistics, most of them, their priority is work, and that is their main role in the household is to provide. If in a dual income house where the woman takes on a job, especially a corporate job that becomes a bigger role, then there's still all those things that have to be done. And some people do hire a nanny, or they, have somebody do their laundry, they have a house cleaner, those sort of things. But some people, like, that's fulfilling. And when you want to be a mom, like, I don't want somebody else to raise my kids.
Yep.
I do want someone else to clean my house, though.
Girl, I still have somebody else clean my house. I'm not trying to mop floors.
It's 100% true, and that is exactly the point that I'm making. Is that it is still unbalanced. Like we're not there yet, and so like I hear a lot of people saying constantly, like, okay, we have the numbers, whatever, but that doesn't make society balanced. And it was an entire podcast I was listening to the other day. It was a really good podcast. So anyways, well, Mandy, thank you so much for joining us.
We need to do this again. That was great.
I love it. I'd love to have
you.
Annie. I would love to have you on our show to really kind of dive into more details of what your corporate background was and what you really took from it, because it sounds like it was a lot, that really kind of played into the foundation of your success in being a realtor. So I find that really exciting. And for anybody out there that's looking for us, you can find us at thecorporateburnouts.com. Of course, we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, like all the things. We're all the places. Just start searching Corporate Burnouts.
Yeah. And if you haven't subscribed to Real Chat yet, do that, of course. It was awesome. I loved this conversation. This is going to be one of my favorite episodes, I think. So I'm super excited.
I love it. Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Not a problem.
We'll
See
talk
you
soon.
later.
Bye.